Turkey is blocking Sweden and Finland from joining NATO, all as the globalist world crumbles with the rise of civilization states. We're going to take a look at Turkey's opposition to NATO expansion. We're going to see how even Sweden and Finland are putting some brakes, shall we say, on their membership. And stick with the very end of this video when I'll show you how the rise of civilization states explains the tensions between Turkey and NATO. You are not going to want to miss this. Greetings, everyone. Dr. Stevie with you. Great to be with you. As always, I am your daily fake news antidote. So come on into your Patriot Professor's Den, where I help you to think better so you can feel better in these crazy, turbulent, and as we're saying now, increasingly anti-woke times. So make sure to smack that bell and subscribe button. Before we begin, gang, make sure to click on that link below and treat yourself to the best night of sleep of your life with the one and only MyPillow. And the best part is that you can now get the best sleep of your life with their lowest prices in their history with code Turley. So, for example, usually the classic MyPillow costs $69.98, but now if you use my code Turley, you can get your own classic MyPillow for just $19.98. And that applies to over 200 products in their catalog, so don't wait. Click on that link below. Get one for yourself. Get another for the Patriots in your life. Their price has never been lower. Let's support Mike and MyPillow, and let's get the best sleep of our lives. All right, gang, let's dive right in here. You know, it's being widely reported that the nation of Turkey has blocked an early vote on Sweden and Finland's joining NATO. Now, why in particular Sweden and Finland are joining NATO is anyone's guess. They're under no threat of invasion by Russia. Russia and Finland haven't had a military skirmish in 80 years, not since the so-called Winter War 39 and 41. Both Finland and Sweden were officially neutral nations during the Cold War. And besides, I mean, how many of you think it's in America's national interest to sacrifice our 18-year-olds for Helsinki? I certainly don't, but nevertheless, both Finland and Sweden are turning their backs on decades of neutrality and seeking to join NATO, and NATO being radically expansionist, which is one of the major reasons why we are in this mess with Russia to begin with. That, of course, was the assessment of John Mearsheimer, the University of Chicago, George Kennan of Harvard, a number of others, that NATO expansionism was going to provoke a war with Russia. NATO's clearly not learning its lessons, going full throttle expansionist. And unfortunately for the Lindsey Grahams and the eye patch McCains out there, the nation of Turkey is proving to be a major obstacle to fulfilling that globalist expansion. President Erdogan has restated in no uncertain terms his opposition to NATO membership, citing his concern over Finland and Sweden's willingness to give aid and comfort to the PKK, or Kurdish militants, designated as a terrorist organization by the Turkish government and its Western allies. The PKK has waged an uprising against the Turkish government for the last few decades. They've been responsible for thousands of deaths of Turkish troops and citizens. And according to Ankara, both Sweden and Finland are openly supporting the PKK and aiding and abetting them. So that's their excuse for not giving their approval of this membership. But I would argue that the reasons behind Turkey's opposition to Finland and Sweden joining NATO go much deeper. Now, I think it needs to be said that Finland and Sweden joining NATO, frankly, is pretty stupid, okay? Despite claims of its wide popularity, neither nation is going to be holding a referendum to join. They're not subjecting this decision to the popular opinion of their populations. And that's most certainly because the decision to join NATO isn't as popular as leftist pundits disguised as journalists are claiming. It's certainly not as popular as the referendum was for Crimea to join Russia back in 2014. That referendum to this day has overwhelming support. But again, this joining NATO adds no major military advantage for the European theater. Finland's government has come out and stated unequivocally that they are steadfastly against hosting any nuclear weapons in their nation, hosting any NATO bases in their nation. Russia's already heavily militarized the Arctic North to Finland and Sweden. They don't have to do anything different in response to this. In fact, Russia has been rather quiet about it. And that's perhaps because they're relying on Turkey to thwart this joining. So let's get into that a bit, because I do think it's actually rather interesting. At one level, I mean, you've got, of course, Ankara saying that they are opposed to giving membership to nations that they say support the PKK militants who they consider an enemy of the Turkish government. On another level, Turkey's doing its best to try to maintain as much neutrality as possible over the Ukrainian war. Turkey doesn't want to expand the scope of the conflict. It's trying to maintain good relations with Russia. And all of that is most certainly true. But there's a whole other level to all of this, a much deeper geopolitical level to what's happening here with Turkey's opposition to Sweden and Finland joining NATO. And that is how the nation of Turkey is increasingly seeing itself as a resurgent post-globalist civilization state. Now, we've been talking a lot about civilization states ever since the Russian incursion into Ukraine began back in February. As the globalist world begins to wane, we're beginning to see the re-territorialization of power relations along the lines of older civilizations, ancient ones, rooted in the classic world religions. And that's precisely what we're seeing with the rise of neo-Orthodox Russia, the rise of neo-Confucian China, and increasingly Hindu nationalist India. Civilization states are in effect building up their own self-contained, ancient, self-sufficient life worlds. That's what we're seeing in Russia. Russia's in effect decoupling itself from the globalist world order. They are deliberately and decisively leaving the globalist world and building their own orthosphere, their own self-contained civilization sphere with its own parallel economy, its own parallel currency, its own parallel arts and entertainment, its own parallel internet structure and telecommunications, its own parallel sports leagues, space travel, you name it. Well, according to a number of scholars, the nation of Turkey is increasingly seeing itself in this way as a civilization state. A number of scholars have noted that both Erdogan and his party, the AKP, the Justice and Development Party, are interested in transforming Turkey more into a neo-Anatolian federation of Muslim ethnicities rather than as a secular democratic republic of Turkish citizens. And some have even surmised that this transformation might even involve at some point a revived caliphate. And this means that Turkey is moving away from the Western European model of liberal democracy and towards a far more traditionalist, conservative culture and social order. And the simple fact of the matter is that an Islamic-based Turkey is going to find far more common ground with traditionalist-based Orthodox Russia than with NATO or a highly secularized European Union. And this emergence of a Russo-Turkish alliance rooted in the reconfiguration of post-globalist politics around the notion of the civilization state, that has profound ramifications for the future of NATO. As it turns out, Turkey may indeed see its future as bound up far more in the civilizationally based alliance with Russia than with the waning and weakening states of Europe. And as Ankara is re-envisioning itself as the center of a neo-Ottoman empire, so Moscow is re-envisioning itself as the center of a neo-Byzantium empire. And in many respects, there are thinkers who see both Russia and the Ottoman empires, as it were, are joint heirs of Byzantium. And therefore, there's a very real possibility, a highly romantic one, of a Russo-Turkish anti-Western, anti-liberal alliance. And that vision may indeed be what's behind this resistance by Turkey against NATO expansion. So needless to say, it's very interesting stuff, and we'll see how things develop, both at the level of NATO membership for Sweden and Finland, but far more significantly, we'll keep our eyes on developments of Turkish identity in relation to the rise of neo-civilizationism in an increasingly post-globalist world. Now, before you go, you will definitely want to check out my latest video that I just uploaded on the Ukrainian forces surrendering en masse in Mariupol, all as Europe bends the knee to Putin's demands. You're not going to want to miss that. So make sure to click on that link, and I will see you over there. God bless.